Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we have another Master Chief figure because Halo's coming out in like the next day or two depending on which day you look at this video. And I'm very excited because it's Halo and this is Master Chief, and they're two of the greatest things ever to grace pop culture media. So, we're going to review it. It's got some really good stuff going on, and it's got some stuff that's not really good at all, especially if you saw the first one. We're going to dive into it in detail, in depth. We're not going to pull any punches. We're going to talk about all the great stuff, all the bad stuff, and we're going to do a little bit of comparing. So get some popcorn ready. Let's go ahead and get this guy off the stand and take a closer look. Okay, now this is the Series 3 version of Master Chief. I don't think I mentioned that in the intro. So it is a little bit different than the first one that we looked at. I do believe Series 2 was just another of the Series 1. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I don't have it, so I can't say. But we have Series 3 and Series 1, and that's what we're going to be talking about right here. Before we do that, though, let's go ahead and measure the height. This guy stands almost exactly 7.5 inches to the top of his noodle, which makes him pretty close to 19 centimeters. And we're going to do a quick side-by-side, just for height purposes, to see if anything changed there. Nothing serious. If there's any differences, I would chalk it up to posability. Obviously, you can probably tell right now that the one on the left with the chrome visor has a shorter neck, which is way more accurate. Yet somehow he's not shorter. So something else changed. There are some changes. We're going to talk about all of that. Before we do that, though, let's do a quick question of the day. If you've played it, how do you feel about Halo Infinite's multiplayer situation right now, particularly the progression system? I don't care about customization, though that blows. The progression system is what I'm concerned with. For me, the commendations in Halo 5 made it so much more fun to play with different weapons and things, and right now, it doesn't track anything, so I don't care for it, but I'm curious how you guys feel if you've played it. Okay, let's get into the review. This guy, we definitely see some changes. Let's go ahead and bring out the other one again real quick. The first thing I noticed is the color green is a little bit different and also very different at the same time. Mostly because this one has dry brushed silver on top. This one has silver, but also a lot of airbrushed black. And then the green is a little bit more saturated as well, so he seems to be much darker, much darker. We do have a better accurate paint job right here for the chest plate. This one's missing a little bit. And then obviously I'm not going to mention every little tiny change, but there are other changes throughout. You can look at like the things that look like vents on the backpack there. They're not painted the same. Little details here and there aren't the same. And of course we have the grapple shot connected to his arm. And then we also have different accessories, of course. We'll get to that. But the most notable change, probably for most people, which you've hopefully noticed, the chrome visor is no longer a thing. Now, it's not true chrome, but it's pretty damn close on Series 1 and 2, which is gorgeous. That's nowhere near as gorgeous. It's still nice. Like, it looks good. It's fine. But this, oh man, that's something else. Especially for a $20 figure. Get the heck out of here is how I respond to that. That's awesome. This is like, oh, it's painted. Okay. So it's way less of a wow factor for me, and I don't care for it. Then the other thing that's most notable to me is that this guy's neck is very tall. It's a very, very long neck on that guy, whereas this guy, it looks like a guy who's got armor on and then a helmet on his head, which is how its Master Chief is supposed to look. His neck's just a little bit too long. And unfortunately, because we have different necks and different heads, the heads are not the same mold. They are not interchangeable without modification. So if you bought extras of these to put the head on here because you like the new darker scheme, not a great idea. So aesthetically speaking, those are the main differences. We also have some differences right here in the chest piece. The collar is not painted on the new one. So that's the main difference in aesthetics. We will talk about articulation in a minute, but let's just finish running over the aesthetics. The sculpt is still overall really solid. It's still a good-looking Master Chief. If you remember for Series 1, I said it's one of the best Master Chief figures ever, especially if you consider the value, the $20 value, despite its shortcomings. Unfortunately, this new one, though they fixed some of the shortcomings, they still have quite a few. It is good looking though, so from an aesthetic perspective, despite the long neck, which I'm guessing most people will be able to live with, it's still pretty darn solid. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for the aesthetic. Despite its flaws, it's still really nice for a $20 figure. Now, as far as accessories go, we get the 2 gripping hands that come on him in the package. We get a 2-finger, like, kind of like pointing, go in that direction sort of pose. I don't know what that's for, really. We get 2 fist hands, and then I guess, is it like a trigger? It's not a trigger finger. I don't know why those 2 fingers are like that. Anyway, and then we get 2 loose hands. So those are all the hands. We do get the new not DMR, which is a terrible, terrible weapon at this point. It doesn't do enough damage for what it feels like or looks like, or it just, honestly, I like to use it because I like the design of the gun. It's like a more realistic gun. Anyway, it's not a great gun in game, and you get it, but whatever. And then you get this grapple shot with rope in it, but it's really cumbersome and huge, and it doesn't snap together well, but it's well enough made, like for looks, kinda, sorta. Yeah, you get it. So accessory-wise, 7 out of 10. They're there. It's a variety of accessories. It's fine, but they're not that well done. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the articulation on this guy. The head, not just a ball peg this time. We have the hinge and a ball peg. So he rotates. Does he lean much? No. It's not really effectively a ball peg. It's just a swivel on top of a hinge. So you get the hinge. It's Marvel Legends style articulation. Hinge and swivel, which is fine. Like I said, the tall neck, it almost has like a Halo 3 vibe, but he's not built like Halo 3 Master Chief. And it makes the head look too small, and it throws it off. Like, you probably got used to it and think that looks good, but then when I bring this out, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's what Chief's supposed to look like. So, it's not great. For the shoulders, where you don't have as much of a looseness situation, these are perfectly adequately snug. I like that. The hinge is fine. The pads still flex a little bit. That's okay. You do get your bicep swivel. It's still fairly limited. This one popped off on me when I took it out of the package, but a little hairdryer action, it seems to be okay. Let's see. Nope, it still pops off. Mine's mismolded, apparently. Okay, well, that sucks. I'm going to count that as a one-off. Hopefully not everybody else has experienced that. I've seen a bunch in the store. None of them had loose limbs. I'm going to count that as a one-off. Hopefully you guys don't have that problem. But you do get your bicep swivel, that's fine. Double jointed elbow works very well. I love that. They did a good job not making it ugly. Somebody should tell McFarlane Toys how to make a double jointed elbow that's not hideous. Very functional, love that. We do have our swivel and our hinge in the hands. It's not a vertical hinge, it should be, but it's not. Torso articulation is next to nothing. It's almost nothing at all. You can't even rotate it at the top or at the bottom. It's very, very limited. Very limited. Now the hips, they changed the legs situation going on this guy. When I reviewed this, I was like, it's good, but it could be better, and I explained how it could be better. But let me just show you how this guy functions. The hips aren't all that different, but they're super loose this time, like wicked loose. Get it? Okay, I thought that was clever. Anyway, the legs are very loose out to the side, like floppy. Like, any more loose, they wouldn't be connected. So that's definitely a problem. Forward and back is not too loose, and you get decent enough range. They don't go back at all because of his cheeks, but he can kick. So the forward and back is fine. Out to the side has almost no range unless you force it under. Then it's fine, and then it'll stay because it's forced under, but they are floppy as sin. There is no retention there until you wedge them under the hip, which is again fine, but you don't really need Chief to do splits, so that's not a good situation. They are so floppy, and it's just a ball peg. So in theory, you could pull them apart, throw some paper in there, close them back up, and it'll hold in place. So let's hope that's going to solve the problem. Now it's floppy going forward too. Oh man, this right leg is just not, it wants to do what the arm did and just get away. So this is not good so far, definitely problematic. I am going to be lenient because how good the figure looks, but it still doesn't compare to Series 1 so far. So that's what my main purpose here is, to compare the two series. Thigh swivel is next to non-existent on this release. It swivels out just a little bit, but just a little bit. Okay, now the knees. I said, hey, on the first batch, the knees were pretty good, but I'm sure they're going to iterate and make them even better. But watch what they did. I'm not trying to be rude here, but holy crap. These are some, I don't even know what to say about that. I've never seen anything quite as egregiously unattractive as that. For no apparent reason. Like, they could have, if they were going to change them to make them better, they could have done that. But these knees, look at these knees. They're not good, but they aren't anywhere near as bad. So, holy crap. Holy crap. Why? What happened? What happened? Why did you do that? Don't do that. Anything but that. That's a really hideous knee. That's one of the worst knees, if not the worst knee that I've ever seen. It's so tall. And I can live with that if it's at least attractive underneath, but it's not. I don't know what they were thinking. At least it looks good when it's down. Maybe that's what they were thinking, but you could do pretty much anything that looks good in a neutral. So I don't understand that. That's bad. And then for the ankles, they do go back. Can we get them even farther back? Yeah, you can get the ankles really far back, so that's good. Going forward, that's where they go, unless you tuck them over. Then they get really good range, so I'm down with the ankles. I like that. Ankle rocker's a little crooked, but that's okay. Toe hinge is exactly how I've been saying toe hinges need to be done. That's what you do with a toe hinge. So props to them for that. Look at this. It's flat here, it's flat here. The diameter of the hinge is the thickness of the foot. That is exactly how you do a toe hinge, and it puts the toe in the right place. It's just the toes, it's not half of the whole foot. That's exactly how you do a toe hinge. It's nice and stiff, that's what she said, and it's functional. Best toe hinge I've seen in a long time. Ankles work well enough. Knees are an abomination. I will say, though, they got the right color pegs in there. That's good. They are listening. They are trying. What happened to the knees? Why is the looseness gone from the shoulders but now introduced into the hips? Like, way bad. Not great. Articulation on this guy, the rating's only going to be a 5 out of 10. Way too floppy, way too limited. At least this guy, the floppiness wasn't that bad, and the other things weren't a problem. So, like, for this particular one for me, I only have a loose shoulder right here, and everything else is acceptable. And the knees aren't hideous. I can pose him without feeling bad. So, to me, Series 1 trumps this guy. But let's do a final verdict on this guy. It's still a good Master Chief figure. If this is the only one you can find, your arm probably won't be popping off. It still looks good. It's still only 20 bucks. Walmart's selling them for like 17 or 18 bucks most of the time. So, there's a lot going on here. I have to point out the bad because that's how people perceive things. If they buy something and everything looks normal, they're gonna be like, yes, I'm happy I bought that. But if they buy something and something's really bad, they're gonna have a negative response. You can only be so happy or content, but you can be considerably more unhappy. And so I have to point those things out. They still did a fabulous job with the overall sculpt work and things like that. The shading on here looks pretty cool. Like, it's a nice looking release for sure. But there are so many problems. I'm only going to give this guy a final verdict of a generous 6 out of 10. The long neck, the super loose joints, the ugly knees, the accessories aren't better, the chrome visor's gone. Like, this, it doesn't beat this one by a mile. This one is significantly a better release. Even with the flawed paint job on the chest, the chrome visor takes it a long way. And the fact that this one doesn't fall apart and isn't all floppy, the original release wins by a mile for me. It's still a strong enough release, but it's not a good one compared to the first one. I don't know how it got worse, but it did. So that's my unfortunate final verdict. That's my review on this guy. It could be so much better. Could be so much better, and it's just not. There is another Master Chief figure I'll be reviewing, though. It's either yesterday or tomorrow, depending on which way they get uploaded. That's the 1000 Toys version of the same guy. So make sure you check that out, guys. And make sure you let me know how you felt about the video. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Give it a thumbs down if you didn't. And also let me know in the comment section how you feel about this release or the first one. And we'll talk about that. So thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have a new video almost every single day. Probably until the end of the year, it will be every single day. So if that doesn't happen, though, I do have thousands already on the channel you can check out. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.